What's going on, workforce? Brian here, and in today's video we're breaking down our process on how we make thumbnails and videos. Several of you have asked us over the period of time, what do we do? How do we get started? What can we give you? How can we help you get started? And so I thought, what better way just to break down our process and let you guys take what you need from it, So we're gonna just cover pretty much the basics of the thumbnail and obviously video editing and some tips and tricks with the software we use. We use Adobe Creative Suite, so that's Premiere and that's Illustrator and Photoshop, several of those tools, but this should be something that can translate to really any software that you're using at this time. But anyway, without further ado, just let us know if you got any questions in the comments below. We'd love to help you in any which way we can from whatever experience that we've gained over the course of time. So without further ado, let's just do this thing. Now we're actually going to start with the end in mind, and that is the YouTube thumbnail. The thumbnail is your cover letter, it's your introduction. We've slowly become better at it. In fact, I know when I was first starting out, the thumbnail was the most annoying thing to create. Felt like after you poured yourself into your video, into your vlog, into whatever you wanted to present, the thumbnail was this like additional chore that was just a pain. So we were like, well, how can we make this easier and more efficient? And we came up with pretty much a template, and you can kind of see it here. We're using Adobe Illustrator, so you see all of these beautiful, beautiful layers, and get ready to make layers. And so we kind of make layers based off of categories. Kind of start out, we have our titles, our people, our subjects, our backgrounds. And so if I just pick on backgrounds, you can easily see I can change the thumbnail. So we'd spend a little bit of time making various backgrounds, and you can see we kind of categorize various colors for that. You don't have to do it, but it's something that we kind of do. It's not like 100%, so these aren't hard, fast rules that you can't break. Again, the thumbnail should be that cover letter and that introduction to it. So for guides and stuff like that, we use blue. So we have subjects and people. And so you can see here, if I want to go ahead and turn on my face for something, I can easily just click and add and hide it or show it depending on what makes the most sense. So that's where all this comes from, is that you create assets over time. To kind of illustrate how that looks on my main computer, I'm going to drag this window in here, close out my OneDrive there, and I go assets. As I build out and collect and make various assets for various games or people or subjects, I go ahead and create those in here. And this is also in the cloud. I use OneDrive because computers will fail you, and you want to be able to get this and recover this as quickly as possible. So usually I can drag and drop these into their own layer. So you want to manage every asset on its own layer. To make a new layer, you have this little new layer button here, create new sublayer. And as long as the layer is visible, you can go ahead and create it. So I just went ahead and made a new layer, but I don't have anything to create on it. So let's actually talk about creating assets. So for that, I use Photoshop, and here is an image of myself looking, kind of happy. Spend some time making maybe pictures of your face. If you don't have to do this, it's not a requirement. It's just something we typically do for the channel itself. So I can use the magic selection wand, but you can see it's really like with the green and the shade, because I don't actually have professional lighting, it can be kind of difficult. If you click and hold, you can actually bring up the quick selection tool, and this will allow you actually to do various multi-selects. You can see that here it blends and grabs my green beanie, which is not what I want to do. So maybe I want to go about it the other way. So I can kind of click and hold and start, kind of selecting myself. It's going to pick up some of the green, and that is okay as far as it goes. So there we go. I've got it there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control C. This is an image that I have taken with my webcam. And so what I want to do is File, New, and I want to select from my clipboard. The reason you copy it is that Photoshop, especially now, will actually pick the data from your clipboard, and I can paste it in, and now I have a transparent background layer. This makes it a lot easier for me to select the eraser tool, and typically I'm on my Surface Studio, so I can use my pen, which makes it a lot easier to kind of trace all this stuff out. But man, that was actually pretty easy and clean. Now the question is do I decide to keep the chair? And for the case of this video, we're going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to go and save this as Brian New 5. I'm going to pick on my assets folder, pick in my Brian folder, and then I've got my fourth image, and I'm going to go ahead and save it. And there we go. So now I've created a new asset for the video thumbnail in this case. So let me go ahead and say, let me turn off Super Happy Brian. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select my main layer. drag and drop my new image here. And now I can grab these corners to resize. You can also see where if you hover over it, it turns a little thing so you can angle it. I don't really prefer angles for me personally. Click and drag, drop them here. Maybe make them a little bit smaller. See, and the nice thing about working with layers is that you can sit here and you can kind of play around, manage various objects. So I'm gonna put them right here. How to make YouTube or videos for YouTube. One of the things that I also do, as you can see here, is that each of these various texts are their own object, and that way I can manage, drag them around, resize them as necessary, and even color them differently. One of the things that we've seen in how people engage with our thumbnails, and one thing that YouTube actually shows us, which is really interesting, is the impressions and click-through rate. And we find that by alternating the size of the text on the thumbnails as well as various colors, I guess that is more attractive to the eye. The eye picks it up a little bit easier, and thus we get a better click-through rate. Also, the topic and whatever your video is about can be hugely important as well. And so with that, our thumbnail is pretty much done. I can go File, Export, Export for Screens, and here you can kind of check which different artboards that you use. Artboards are a whole different topic for another day. And I'm gonna go ahead and give this a name saying YouTube Guide. And you can actually make varying scales of your image. So you can say it's twice as big, 3 times as big. I recommend doing this if you actually publish to multiple platforms. YouTube's, their sizes are pretty much set, as well as Twitch's. So just be aware of the dimensions to where you're publishing your thumbnail. If you're doing a podcast or something like that, this is also completely possible, and you can create various different scales so that you can kind of export it once and have it in different formats as needed. So I just hit export artboard, and it's going to go ahead and create it in my various folder. And I try to group these things. I created a lot of thumbnails, so I've been grouping them by year and by quarter. Manage your files the best way that you can in this case. So with that, that's our thumbnail. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the video editing piece. So we've just seen how to make the thumbnail. Now let's go ahead and dive into actually making the video itself. Pretty much I'm going to break this down. I'm going to give you a quick tour of some of the tools that you're going to need and probably want to become more familiar with. If you guys want a more in-depth analysis on how to use these tools, just let me know in the comments below. We'll see if we can create some more detailed guides for you. But as far as an introduction goes, how you get started, how you dive in and start really making your own videos as quickly as possible, let's go ahead and talk about those tools right now. I would say you can rearrange any and all of these values. You can put them here, you can drag and drop, easily move these things around, and you can see they can create different tabs. So don't worry about it too much. Over here on the top hand side, you kind of have these generic workspaces that allow you to kind of say, I'm going to focus in on assembly, I'm going to focus in on editing, I'm going to focus in on color. All of that, you can see how I just click on it and it rearranges all these various windows. There is a lot here. Just take it a day at a time, a step at a time, and don't don't let yourself get caught up in the fact that there's just so much things that you can do. Over here on this toolbar right here that you can see on the screen, the arrow is pretty much an arrow allowing you to click, drag, and drop the various clips that you make. This tool allows you to kind of select everything forward, so you can see anything beyond this. This is going to help you move things around and about. But the tools that I want you to focus in on now are the arrow and text, as well as the crop tool, essentially the razor tool. And this allows you to, let me go ahead and click on V and then click on this, so I can cut and be able to place things as needed. You can see where that gets put into the timeline itself. So as I scrub, I can see these different lines. And as long as you have snap turned on, you can see sequence and snap. Snap allows it to join to various things. So it makes it easier to line things up. It can get a bit annoying, so check out sequence, and then you can make sure the snap is turned on by default so that things should try to line themselves up. Down here in the playhead, you can scroll and you can kind of resize, you get a good feel for it. And up at the top, you have all your video layers. And so you can keep creating more and more video assets. And the top asset's gonna be what shows up on the top. And so as you start to layer things, everything kind of jumps around from there. On the bottom, you have your audio, and then hitting the lock key will prevent you from overriding it. As you can see here, I've got the green layer. This should be my voiceover, and you can record your own voiceovers by using this little mic and the microphone that is connected to your computer. Voiceovers are really great when especially doing a lot of narration. You can also record it another way and you can drag and drop it in, but in order not to override your voiceover, once you're done and you're done editing it, you can always click the lock symbol and it's going to put it in place. Same thing applies to videos. It's a great way that if I wanted to separate the audio from the video itself, I can lock the video layer, but then I can just select the audio layer. Hitting the delete key will remove it as well. This is pretty standard and pretty basic. So let's go ahead and dive in actually to a real video and walk you through the process from start to finish. So to start, I'm gonna go ahead and say File, and I'm gonna say New, and I'm gonna say Sequence. I'm within a particular project, typically because I use a lot of the assets over and over again. This could be music files, this could be introduction videos and things like that. I typically will create a project and then I'll create various sequences that I export the individual sequences as far as it goes, especially if I create some interesting animation that I like and I don't want to have to like constantly recreate it. I can do so here, and I can create various things called nests. Look those up. We're not going to cover nests in this video. So I'm going to say how to make YouTube videos. I'm going to name my sequence, and now I have a new sequence here in the playhead. Any of my previous sequences I can see here. You can even close sequences. It's all good. The sequence is actually going to show up in your project as well, so you can open those up from here. One time I accidentally closed one and I was like, where did all my work go? It was there. Don't panic. Just try to name your sequences something that makes sense. So now I'm going to go ahead and drag in my videos. I'm not going to drag in that one first because that's going to, sometimes the sequence will say, hey, why don't you go ahead and change how my settings are for the sequence. So I'm going to go to captures, and I'm actually going to drag and drop in my making thumbnails that we recorded when we started. So I'm going to drag that in. I'm going to say change sequence settings because that's going to be at 60 frames a second at 1080p. So whenever I record directly with my webcam, it can be a little bit different. So I've got that there. Now let me go ahead and drag in my video that I did for my intro. Let's see here, camera roll and making intros video. So I'm going to drag that there. That's great. And I'm obviously going to finish this video with what we're recording now. So for the most part, we have it. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and line this up. I'm going to drag this over here. I've got my intro, and I've got my making thumbnails, and then I'm going to go and actually turn on the computer audio, so we should be able to hear this as well within it. Okay, so we've got our computer audio set, so you should actually hear it as I come into the editing. So here's what I'm going to do to start. I did a first take, and it didn't go so well, and so I restarted it. So I'm going to hit the C key. C stands for the razor tool. You can always click the tool itself. Using and learning kind of the keyboard shortcuts makes it really easy. So I'm going to go and just delete out that starting intro. It's not going to necessarily be used or good. The other thing I can do is I can hit Control D and Control Shift D, and that's going to give it this nice little intro fade. Again, that's Control D and Control Shift D. So now if I hit play, there we go. So you can see me talking, you can hear me in this case. So there we go. And then I'm going to go in here. Let's just do this thing. Clicking the crop tool, going to clear it out. Then let's do the same thing over here. You can see the audio layers or the audio levels are different. So I want to right click and I'm going to say audio gain. And I'm going to say +4 in this case to kind of, you don't want it to peak, and you'll see peaks by the red. If you're hitting red here, just try to clean that up so you're not sitting here just blowing out somebody's speakers or eardrums. And I think I also, cool, there we go. We're going to start with the end in mind. Got that there, and then I'm going to go ahead and find my Work to Game intro video that I created as an asset. All right, so with the Work to Game intro, drag that in here. You can actually click space in the playhead, boom, and hit delete, and it's going to jump it to where it needs to go. This is very handy. I'm going to go and do this. That's going to give it a nice little transition that as the logo is playing, this again is going to be what shows up, but you'll start to hear my voice and it'll jump right into the video itself. So if we go ahead and look and see how that kind of transitions, it should jump, and then I'll put some music in here in a little bit, but we'll go ahead and actually do that while that loads. I'm not going to do that, otherwise it's going to blast your ears out sometimes when playing it. Okay, so you can see the music comes in pretty loud and hot. Again, I use the cut. I'm not actually deleting anything, but I'm setting these playhead markers to go from here. So let me go ahead and right click, say audio gain, -42 to give it a real big drop. I'm gonna say audio gain for just this section. I'll give it a plus 16. Play around with the audio and how you feel. And then again, Control Shift E, it's gonna add in these transitions to go from there. Now we're actually gonna start with the end of mine, and that is the YouTube thumbnail. So now I'll have to go through and edit that. So there's obviously some breaks and snaps. Sometimes when you run into an error recording, you can clap your hands. I'm not gonna do it too loud here. That will give it an audio spike so you can look for these gaps. Here's the next real big important hint. Gaps mean do something. When you're talking about videos, especially if you're making a long form video and content, you're talking about 30 minutes or more. If you're doing a Let's Play, oh my gosh, you're talking about hours. How do you find the content? If you're gonna have to sit here and watch it, you're taking your video editing time to the length or more of that video. So if you're talking about an hour video, you could say it could be 3 or 4 hours to edit it down, and you could end up editing it down to whatever degree. So look for gaps in audio, or if you're capturing game audio, look for like spikes where you can kind of clap your hands. Some people can even use clickers that will show up and register so that it gives you clear points that you're saying either something interesting happened here, or I need to cut that, or nothing interesting was going on and I want to go from A to B, etc. So you can see there's a big old gap here. You can go ahead and cut that as well. Now, I'm going to spend time obviously editing this and making sure the narrative works. Sometimes it doesn't. Big surprise there. But as far as it goes, selecting and cropping are two key important things. And then again, using different layers as it goes. Let's see here if there's anything else. Oh yeah, so let's talk about effects. Effects, one of the key effects that you'll probably really want to use is crop. So if you type in crop, you're going to see this effect. Now, if I double click on any of these clips, you can see it's going to be brought up here. This is going to be my main viewer. Here's what's going to be a part of the selected clip. And I can see the various effects that exist right now. Position, that's the position where it is within the playhead or within the display. Scale, like if I want to increase the scale, I can do so. And you can do so over here over time by clicking on like the little clock. You can actually now toggle an animation. So I can click this, I can click this. I'm going to make the scale bigger, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to say ease in, so it's going to help out a little bit. And you can see what happens is that as it goes into it, it's slowly happening. If I go ahead and make it back here, you can see that it's definitely going to speed up much quicker. So you can do that for position, editing, rotation. All of those things are useful. Let's get rid of it. We want to keep it at 100. So back to the crop and the effect. Like you can search for all kinds of effects. If I just drag and drop the effect in here, you can see it adds in a crop. So if I say crop, if that's all I want to do, then I can do so as well. And I'm going to keep that at 0. There's a lot of power here. There's a lot of things that you can talk about. Opacity masks, being able to create texts and things like that. So I can say, Brian is awesome. And then I can go and play around with the text effects here. Let's say bold, let's say center, let's say, let's give it a drop shadow. You have a lot of tools, you have a lot of fonts and things like that to be able to add. And so then you see that when I created that text, it made a new layer of text here. Control D gives it that nice little fade. Brian is awesome. And you have that ability here. Use text to try to communicate various things, especially if you make a mistake that is not going to be fixable in audio or easily fixable in audio. And so that is pretty much the thought here. That is the layout, how I go and create that. What I'll end up doing to finish this video off is I'll take obviously this video, add it in to here, and from there, then I'll also eventually drop in an outro, which you can record those. Just like with your intros and your outros, things that you're doing over and over again to help establish like your channel or your videos, create those, and then don't feel like you can't update them over time. We play around with it and experiment all the time with these videos. But that's it. Hopefully, I'm giving you the information that you need to get started. You should be able to get into any video editing software, be able to click, and also be able to crop and cut. And that's where you can kind of line those things up. When you cut, let's say if you wanted to rearrange, if I just want to cut this to here, and I can go ahead and drag this out. And if I needed to, I can also just kind of mute that layer, and I can also hide that layer. So that way, if I'm like playing around with it, you can end up saying, okay, well, it's muted and it's hidden, but I don't want to delete it because I might have to come back to it, or I might have to toss it at the end of the video to be able to use if I want to do an outros or an, you know, a kind of a, I guess a flubs, a deleted scenes kind of thing. But it is important that if you do that, if you do drag and drop things out to the end, you remember to do so, because when you go to export, you'll find that it's like, oh, why is my video like 16 hours long? Because you ended up actually dragging and dropping it all the way out there. Okay, so finally, the last bit of piece of it, let's go to export and media. This is where you prepare things for YouTube itself. So you see I have a preset YouTube 2-pass. What this means is it actually goes and exports the video twice and kind of sandwiches them together. And you can see my various output settings. So let's go ahead and dive into that. I'm doing 1920 by 1080, so that's 1080p progressive video from that perspective. I recommend starting with the H.264 format encoder. From here, you're going to have your various settings. So on the video, like not too much that I change. I set it to bitrate encoding VBR 2-pass. That is something that I think helps YouTube out. I think also they prefer that. And then I target the bitrate from 18 to 30. That's really the majority of my export here. You can see that based off of my recording software, it captured it at 60 frames a second, so it's exporting it at 60 frames a second. This is great for video games and gameplay itself. Also, you can see that it's going to output the name of the sequence. So if you drag something in to the system, it's going to name it whatever it is. It will automatically create a sequence for you. So if you have some kind of weird timestamp, that's going to export with it. You can always click on this, change the name of the video, and go from there. As far as it goes audio, I usually target 320 kbs. I think one of the most important things we focus in on is audio quality. I think people aren't going to listen if the audio quality is bad. There's many videos that I have clicked off of pretty quickly whenever it's like, oh, they're in a wind tunnel or something like that. So I usually try to focus in on audio quality. But that is it. H.264, I do a VBR 2-pass. And I usually target from 18 to 30 MBS, whatever you want to call that it is. And then you hit Q, and Q is going to bring up your media encoder, or you can export it in real time as well. If you do Q, your system will bring it up, and you can actually close out the project, or you can go work on another project. It's really up to you. Typically, if you've got multiple videos, you can actually kind of Q, and then you can close out, and then you can just let your exporter just run and process those, like if you got to go to work or something like that, and you've got 10 videos that you've done, or well, you can let the system just kind of churn those out while you're at work and come back and be able to start your uploading process. That's it, guys. That's hopefully something of value. Again, like I said, if you guys want, we can explore this series in more in depth. And let me know what questions you have, and I'll be happy to answer them. But for Work to Game, my name is Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Hey, it's me. Thanks so much for watching this video. You should click here to subscribe, and here to maybe check out some more of our videos. So again, thanks for watching. We hope you like this video. We hope you subscribe and join our community. Let us know in the comments below what you think, and we'll see you next time.